host, Robin Carpenter, and joining me today are our guests, Molly Arthur and Mary Oscategui. And Mary is the president of the International Maternity Institute, and she introduced the first green proofing training program, and her latest book is Green Body, Green Birth. And Molly is a co-founder of the EcoBirth movement, Women for Earth and Birth. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's exciting to have you here
Great
today.
to be here.
Before we started the show, we were talking a little bit about births.
Yes.
So you have a bigger vision of what birth should be for women and on this planet and that connection. So can you share with us how you founded this movement and
Thank
what
you.
your vision is?
Yes. Well, EcoBirth came to me, and I relate earth and birth together.
Mm-hmm.
And what helped me understand that connection was learning that our bodies have been pre-polluted by what we've done to our earth. And what we do to our earth is ingested by our breathing and by our eating, and unfortunately is passed on to our children. Mm-hmm. And so, the sense that I'm embodying something that is harmful to my children is really not the way I want to live in this world, and I'm sure that I don't want to pass it on to my children either. So I would like to see a effort to change the world to a better place. And it came to me that I really don't want my children and my grandchildren to be inheriting the toxins that we're learning more and more have been embodied in us. And birth for me is the pivotal transformational phase in our lives that we all participate in together. All of life is birthed. And if we honor and respect that action, then of course we would be honoring and respecting women and babies and our Mother Earth as well. So EcoBirth in my mind is bring those two together, understand that what we're actually doing to the earth is changing our bodies. Yes. And what we want to understand is that when I'm carrying my daughter in my body, her eggs are being formed in her body, and I'm carrying my grandchildren.
That's a powerful, powerful image and thought.
Yes. 2 generations that we are responsible for. Mm-hmm. And in fact, at any moment during that gestation, there might be something that could change the development of my daughter and my grandchildren as well. And those could be the toxins that are in our environment that we've loosed on the earth and into the world and have ingested. And so those might be a hormone disruption that could be affecting my daughter. And it could affect her immediately as a birth defect, or it could affect her later in life and create vulnerabilities in her resilience and in her health. And the sense that, some of my lifestyle choices might influence the health of my child and grandchildren is important, but the involuntary toxins that somehow are in the world and affecting us is what I really wanted to change and understand how to do that. So it was kind of shocking to me to learn that the Environmental Working Group brought out a research project, and it showed that there were 280 different chemicals in the cord blood before the baby was born. And how did that get there? And I really searched to figure that out and went on quite a journey to figure out, what are the toxins in this world and why are they here? And then I became a grandmother as well on this journey. And in the midst of this journey, the word EcoBirth came to me, and understanding that, we're all interdependent in our system. And so much of what our problem seems to be is that we believe the story that we're separated and disconnected, and that we're not related to each other, and that what is good for you is also good for me. And what's good for me is also good for you. And the reason that is because we influence each other. And what air we're breathing, we are sharing. And what lineage we come from was the initial spark of life on Earth, 50 billion years ago. And the only way that we're birthed is through another woman.
Exactly.
Through another body. So we are, embodied beings. And we need to understand that this life force is precious and that we need to care for it and understand that we're all related and we're all connected. So EcoBirth represents that for me, as far as let us understand that we as women have a precious mission in life to protect this life force and to, through the generations, understand that we are influencing the future of our children, our life, and our grandchildren, and that we need to work to improve and make a better world.
And I think what you're saying is so powerful because of the fact that I know some of the studies that were done were on women that were eating organic, that had had a very, very healthy pregnancy, had very healthy lifestyles, and that still they carried that amount of toxicity in their body that was passed to their child because of what's happened to our planet. So that you can't separate yourself from it. No matter what you try to do as individual choices, we have to come together, is what I hear you saying.
Right. Well, there is no gated community.
Exactly. No gated womb.
Right. No gated womb. That's well said. Yeah. The air and the water is not protected well enough, and the way we're treating our Earth is ending up affecting us in such a profound way. And no one is immune from it. That's what's curious to me. How are the decisions made? That's what I got to finally when discovering. Well, what about these toxins? In my home, we can talk about a lot. And Mary and I can talk about that later about what's in your home and how to improve your birthing experience.
Yes.
But what is it that enables our world, particularly in the United States, to be so toxic, and how is it that we don't understand this?
And also our attitude towards birth. And we're coming up on a break, and we're going to see a video that you brought called Birth Day.
Yes.
That shows a very powerful, beautiful birth of a midwife in Mexico, I believe.
Right, yeah.
So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back, and during the break, you will get to enjoy a wonderful viewing of Birth Day. And we'll see you in just a few minutes.
It started raining and we got a little tired. We wanted to come home, walk back. It's a long walk. So we came home and we had a big lunch. And I couldn't believe I had 3 plates of rice and beans. I could eat everything. And then labor started getting a little harder. Nothing very much, but just, I could feel the contractions. I had to stop my conversation. I had to get up from the table and concentrate. So I walked and I started going around, and I realized very soon that when I was walking towards my husband, the sensation in my womb felt as if the sun wanted to burst out of my belly. And if I looked at him, it was very clear as if it was our love that was swollen inside my belly and that was just wanting to burst out. And as I turned around to walk back the other way, it kind of felt like pain. And I realized if I looked into his eyes, it feels like love bursting out. And so I just mentioned it to him, and soon enough he was walking with me, holding me, and he was walking back, and I was walking forward, just looking at him. And we walked together, and I think that was his way of making sure it only felt like love bursting out and not so much like pain.
Welcome back to Making a Difference in Marin. I'm your host, Robin Carpenter, and our guests are Molly Arthur and Mary Oscategui. and we just saw Birthday, which was a beautiful natural birth, and
Yes.
you were sharing a little bit with us.
Well, the
Molly,
midwife was
about
saying,
that.
well, this is a woman having her third child, and she was happily sharing a family meal together and walking when she needed to. But when she and her husband were walking together, and she was walking towards her husband, you could see it in the film. She could feel her body opening, and they had the gaze of love, sharing. And then when she turned around and away from him, she could feel not as much an opening. So that's really what the endeavor is, actually, is to have the environment and the support to feel that you can open and relax. And it's not just relax, but it's opening so that your body is working naturally to do that, and then you're not fighting the birth, but you're moving with it.
And what you're saying too is that the environment is not only the environment of we deserve a clean and healthy planet to birth healthy children, but we also need to have a culture and an environment around us that enables our natural ways and wisdoms to come through.
It's so important. And and we were just talking about having your husband in the room or not. And when I was having my first child, at some point he took his eyes off of me when we were doing and I said, "You're gone, go." And I had my labor nurse come in and lock eyes with me, because it's a complete focus. You really cannot be disturbed.
Well, and I know for me too, it was like this lifeline when I started to get a little lost with the pain, where you sort of pull out instead of flow with it.
Right.
And having my midwife, hold my face and look into my eyes until it was literally like I felt like I fell off the boat, and she threw out a rope and yanked me back up, and out of the stormy seas.
It's so wonderful support. And you just have to think of what happens when you walk into that hospital. Do you close up?
Yes.
Yeah, so somehow you need to be able to naturally move with your body.
Well, and the fact that we have a 31% C-section rate in America, and you look somewhere like Japan at 11%, or
Brazil 90% in some of the hospitals.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
So we've come so far in the wrong direction in that regard in our own country.
Yes.
And you can see that it's not something that needs to be that way, because it's not that way in other countries. And we rank so low in health for moms and babies during birth.
Yeah.
I think we're 41 for maternal health and 46 for babies' health. So, Mary, can you share a little bit with us about what you do? Because you talk about the process, some of the actual hands-on techniques, and how can you make it the way it should be?
Absolutely. Well, we started the green proofing training program out of a real passion and desire to help maternity professionals educate and raise awareness about the environment as well as health to their clients. As we've heard and spoken about already, there is a lot to be aware of, and when it comes to water and air quality and things like this. And a lot of parents are scared. They're not only scared about the way they're giving birth, right? And they walk into a setting and confidence is lost, and therefore the C-sections come right in, and the drugs. So that's there. Support systems are lacking in this country. In some other countries, you have nurses, for example, that stay with the mom for the first 8 days. Here, it's completely nothing.
You're sent home.
That's it. And so the support system's also lacking. And the other thing is, a lot of women don't understand or don't have the awareness and education that the products that they're using, for example, hair bleach, nail polish, skincare products that are even marketing and advertising that they're natural and good for you and things like that, actually do have really toxic chemicals that can affect and disrupt the hormones, birth defects, and so on.
Just what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The phthalates in perfume.
Yes, exact. Fragrance is one where a lot, till this day, I continue to meet many clients who have had, the moment I tell them, they're surprised, really surprised to learn fragrance is secondhand smoke. It does really affect you very deeply, and you can have birth defects and all these other things that can happen. And so this green proofing training program stemmed out of that, and also to bring back focus to health, because although we need to be very aware of the environment, there's no question that we have to come together as a culture and as a team to, create these movements and to move forward and to be pioneers in that sense. The fact of the matter is that stress itself creates toxins. Lack of sleep creates toxins. The foods we're eating, GMO versus organic, right? So all of these things that we're putting on our body, in our body, are tremendously affecting us. And so that green proofing training program is really helping to bring that in full circle. So it's blending both the awareness of not only the environment, but saying a healthy me also equals a healthy planet, and bringing that together. And also to labor. That's another one. We were talking about the settings. Very interesting. There are birth centers that are greening themselves, for example, using low or no VOC paints, making sure the indoor air quality is great, water filters. Even Deirdre Imus was a pioneer at the Hackensack University Medical Center in New Jersey, 300 square foot facility, which is low VOC paint, rubber flooring, and so on. So, little by little, we can see these changes happening, but it's raising enough awareness to let our clients know that they have options, and that they can take control, and that they don't have to be scared, because that's what I keep running into. I'm sure you do. There's a huge fear factor right now about the toxins and what's happening in the environment, and we want to empower people to be able to come up with great solutions for that.
And it's interesting, just to kind of throw out, you guys mentioned the Environmental Working Group, which I always recommend to people is such a great resource to look up. They have every kind of lipstick or product or hair care or skincare or sunscreens, things like that. So that's a really great resource to look at.
And safecosmetics.org, so that you can find them on the EWG. But it would be safecosmetics.org, and that's where you would see the database.
So what's kind of different and interesting about what Mary and I do is that we put the environment together with birth.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
And somehow birth is separated. It's separated from environmental health and the way it's looked at, and it's separated. And sometimes there's environmental women who don't understand that, they should be doing the natural work as well during their birthing.
That's right.
And, there are implications in taking drugs in birth.
Yes.
And it may be that we're not fully informed with enough capability of consenting.
And we've learned so much that we can't trust testing that's been done by the drug companies themselves and things like that. And so we really do have to be very...
Well, it's really curious. Most of the drugs that are given to mothers have never been tested on babies, as far as I understand.
That is fascinating. I had no idea.
Gosh. So, there isn't any... obviously, there's history where they feel it's been a very good response to drugs, but there, in the long run, are effects on children as to how they're birthed. And, a drug for me is just like a toxin. It's just like a chemical.
That's right.
But, so it can be looked at in that way. But really the most important thing is for women to feel empowered to make and understand that they have the capability. And that's why I talk about with EcoBirth is, honor and respect yourself and who you are as the life giver. And, explore your own authentic self. And that's your empowerment. That's your understanding about who you are. And in my mind, connecting one's lineage. I am immutably connected to my mother and my grandmother and all the women all the way back to the first life force. And that, informs me about who I am and what I am. And it informs me about the responsibility that I have.
And that's something we talked about, if you don't mind me saying, is that this whole disconnect, even in talking about our own birth experiences, when we were sharing stories, our mothers never talked about it, and their mothers never talked about it. And so that's something, again, why is that? Why are we not sharing our birth stories with our children? And how, there's a huge disconnect in that, where, we should be communicating and sharing what the process was and the experience. So we've noticed that in our culture that as well. There's just been like almost a secretive, hidden, until the actual birth, nobody talks about it.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and let's talk a little more about that and the power of story and placing yourself in lineage and making these things happen. So stay tuned. We'll be back with you in just a minute.
Hi, I am Mary, and this is Bella Luna Oscategui, and you're watching the Baby Planner TV show. And in honor of World Breastfeeding Week, I wanted to share with you why we love breastfeeding. Not only does breastfeeding contain all the vitamins and nutrients that your baby needs, but breastfeeding also, the breast milk contains antibodies that helps protect your baby against ear infections, respiratory issues, gastrointestinal problems. Another important fact about breastfeeding is that the longer a woman breastfeeds, the more she's protected against breast and ovarian cancer. Very, very important, and I really believe that speaks for itself. It is convenient and now fashionable with all the different types of nursing and mommy covers out there. You don't need to be self-conscious. I actually find that it's being more and more accepted. Personally, I also think it's great because it helps you lose weight. You burn calories, anywhere from 500 to 800 calories. It gives you downtime and time to bond with your baby. And finally, I feel that just in general, breastfeeding is something that at first, you know, it seems like an obstacle and a challenge because number one, it can be painful. I personally, for 2 weeks, experienced a lot of pain. And then after that, it was like easy downhill. Secondly, I know that if you're a working mom and you need to go back to work, that is quite a challenge. However, I really feel that challenge can be overcome. There's numerous ways around it, and I just feel it's just a matter of preparation and finding out what works best for you and baby, and then you can take it from there. Somehow we can, you know, if we really want something, we can make it work. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Making a Difference in Marin. I'm your host, Robin Carpenter, and my guests today are Molly Author and Mary Oscategui, and we're talking about claiming the power of birth and lineage back for women and how to do that with the EcoBirth movement and with the Green Body, Green Birth. And we were talking about the power of story and women sharing the stories of birth and how we've lost that in our culture.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you want to share a little bit about that and talking about how that ties in with the empowerment.
Right. Well, I think it's so important for us to understand who we are in our story too. And part of mine is that I examined and went back into my lineage and thought, well, if I'm influencing my grandchildren, well, what about my grandmother? What was she doing when my mother was being gestated in 1912? And I'm a 6th generation California and 4 generations in San Francisco. So what was happening in 1912? It was an eye-opener to look into, well, to understand about the mercury from the gold rush was still in the water around in San Francisco. The Hunters View, Bayview has been a Navy base. And the toxins that are loose, and what's incredible about San Francisco is it's, you know, a war manufacturing center of the world.
You know, we never think about
No,
that. Yeah.
I didn't quite realize that until I went to all the Superfund sites and started looking at it. And so I wondered about the lead paint also in the Victorians, and all the Victorians were painted with lead paint. And that's what I grew up in. And my daughter, my sister was born with a birth defect. Her left hip bone socket didn't grow. And I wondered, you know, was there some influence on her life? And so the exploration of kind of my lineage, because I want to save my legacy, is a real journey, I think, for women to do, and therefore come up with our story about who we are, where we're connected, and what are the influences, and have some consciousness about, well, where did this start, and therefore now what can I do to have an impact, and to understand that, you know, there are forces here that we may need to use our own specific gifts to change.
And speaking, when you talk about that, it makes me think of what you're doing, Mary, with support.
Right.
Because, and that's one thing too, to sort of speak to all women, because whether or not you have children or will ever have children, we're all women. And so there's a way we must be supportive of each other as women and birth And so whatever your choices in your life or where you are in your life path, you can still be part of assuring the lineage going forward through the types of support that we need in our culture.
Absolutely. And with the lineage, I wanted to add there's a healing aspect, because when you're understanding where you're coming from and what has happened, that also gives you an opportunity for healing. And then that can also lead you for more openness and to accept support, because a lot of women in today's culture are expected to do a lot. That's something we're finding. Be the perfect worker, be the perfect wife, be the perfect partner, mother, and so on. And there's all these expectations. And so a lot of women hide behind these expectations and don't even seek support. So that's also something we've learned and battled with, is a lot of women are actually, no, I don't want to seek support because I'll seem weak in this culture, because it's a very, masculine-oriented culture still in that sense. So we've been looking at how to break those barriers and how to really introduce a support system without really having to make a woman feel like she's being weak and so on. So education has been a really big one, and we, although the term green has been something like, considered earthy crunchy, we tend to use the words health and safety quite a bit, because that really leads people, their guard is down, they don't associate the earthy crunchy, they'll understand health and safety, that is something that will connect everybody. And so when we really start raising education and awareness, then health and safety becomes at the forefront, and women start to open up and share. And then that is when we can come in and say, here are all your options. Because what you were sharing earlier is so common, where a woman has this innate intuition about what she should do, the kind of birth she should have, but then maybe her family members, it's not even her co-workers or community, but even her own family members are saying, no, you're crazy for having the hospital birth, or what, you're thinking that? And then she'll many times ignore that intuition because there's not that support system. When, like you were mentioning earlier, when you have others around you that say, it's okay, and they give you permission to connect with yourself, and that then is very empowering. You can say, all right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to follow that intuition and empower myself to do what I feel is right for this experience. And so that is something that we're continuously working on, is just keeping that support system at the forefront and really using education to connect all women together, utilizing health and safety as the main components.
It's so important for us to understand the intuition and to be able to grasp it and bring it forth as women, and be authentically who we are, and understand that we want to have a meaningful life. We want to do something that's important for our children, our grandchildren, and for the world. And we need to find out who we are first in order to do that.
So we have so enjoyed having you on the show. Could you each just quickly tell us where people can find out a little bit more about you? And we'll also have it up on the screen because we just have a few minutes left.
Right.
Molly?
Great. I'm at EcoBirthGreenWomb.org.
And Mary?
You can find me at maternityinstitute.com.
Great. Thank you both for joining us. Thank you for joining us on Making a Difference in Marin, and we hope to see you again soon.